Praise the Lord and welcome to Chapter and Verse. Thank you for joining us for this half hour. Ray Dempsey, you have a wonderful guest here, Jack
Colby.
Colby.
Yes.
Former professor of 41 years, you were telling us.
Yeah, I tell people that I started when I was 6.
That's a long time.
It was a long time. It was,
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And Henry Shelton is a dear friend.
Yeah, as I came to the end of my time at PC, I wrote Henry a letter. I knew of his work. I had made some contributions to the Wiley Center, financial contributions, and felt strongly about the value of Henry's work. So I wrote him a letter, and I said, I'm about to retire. I'll probably continue to do things professionally. In fact, I had a research associate position at Brown that I was starting. Ooh. And so I would have time on my hands, and I was interested in working with Henry for the causes that the Wiley Center promotes.
You being a psychologist, well, what field did you teach at PC?
Well, I taught what we call experimental psychology, which is...
I had that in college.
You had that, yeah.
Roger Williams College at the time, now it's university.
Okay, right.
That gets into some algebra, I remember. I was having a little bit difficulty at the time. Does it get to algebra and some geometry and the mathematics and...
Well, statistics is...
Statistics.
Yeah,
Oh,
because we're experimental psychologists, besides teaching, we're researchers.
Yeah.
So when we do research and we're trying to show that something is having an impact, changing people, changing groups, whatever, we need to be able to show mathematically that when we make claims, those claims are defensible. And so, you know, I wouldn't describe us as sophisticated mathematicians. We're good enough mathematicians to do what we need to do.
That course is a tough course, statistics.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
What were you research at Brown? What were you doing there?
Well, I'll back up and just to tell you a little bit about the kinds of interests that I had and where I got to where I am with the Wiley Center and what we're doing now. My first work was in counseling psychology, and I had a degree in counseling psychology, and that's where I started at PC. But I was very young, had limited life experience, and realized that I really needed more schooling and needed to become more sophisticated in understanding psychological principles and theories and so forth. So I went back to school at the University of Rhode Island. I got my second master's degree and a PhD there. And I was working with developmentally delayed children and autistic children, trying to help these kids and their families to cope with disorders that they had. Did a lot of work with self-abusive children, trying to eliminate self-abuse so they wouldn't have to go into institutions and so
Wonderful.
on. And over time, you know, I did other things, which is what experimental psychology is supposed to do. We're supposed to educate ourselves broadly because we're teaching, and the more broadly you're informed, the better teacher you can be. So that I adopted that view. As I came to the midpoint of my career at PC and a little bit after that, I became interested in substance abuse issues, and particularly what makes a community a place where substance abuse is more likely to occur than, say, some other community. Mm-hmm. So I studied what we call community risk factors for substance abuse.
Mm-hmm. And that gets into sociology, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the kinds of factors that contribute to substance abuse are their sociological, their psychological, their economic, and then there's the whole makeup of the community, whether it supports healthy behavior, whether it can support healthy behavior. Can mothers and fathers and other family members, can they do the job that they need to do to help kids to develop in ways that make them successful, as opposed to failing in school, failing in work, failing in managing their lives? So I was very interested in that. And as I explored these community risk factors for substance abuse, one thing kept on coming up over and over again. Several things did, but one thing was the stress that's caused by poverty. Low income. And not surprisingly, realizing that and seeing the relationship between families' well-being, economic well-being, and substance abuse, I couldn't help but be interested in the kinds of work that the Wiley Center was doing, led by Henry Shelton. So I contacted Henry, told him that I was interested in volunteering, doing whatever I could do.
That's terrific.
And you know, I think maybe 2 days went by and the phone rang. Very characteristic of Henry. A bird that's not in the hand, Henry will try to get into the hand really fast, get him out of the tree and get him into the hand. So, so he called me up and he said, you know, we're happy to have you help out. And I think I was working with Henry for about 2 weeks, and he said to me, well, this Saturday we're having a leadership meeting. I hope you're able to come. And I thought, how did I get invited to a leadership meeting? I'm here 2 weeks. I'm a volunteer. I'm wet behind the ears. But that's Henry. If you're willing to learn, if you're willing to try to make changes, Henry considers you a leader. And the details of what you need to do, you can pick up along the way. But Henry wants you to get involved, and so I did. And I've been working with Henry on, well, the kind of things that are the mission of the Wiley Center, which is to make sure that people have jobs, and that those jobs compensate them well, so that they can live a life that's dignified. Food in schools, enough nutrition for kids. We know that there are kids who are going to school because of the circumstances of their families. They're going to school hungry. Henry is a strong proponent, as are other Wiley members, of universal breakfast. We know from studies that have been done, some of them by Boston City Hospital, that when kids get breakfast in schools, their performance improves.
Yes.
These are not inconsequential relationships. They're very strong relationships. And so we promote universal breakfast. We recognize, too, particularly in this bad economy, that families are struggling with food in the house. And right down the street here, you guys are right next door to the Community Food Bank.
Yes.
And Andrew Schiff, the executive director, talks about in his annual report the increased need for food. We have a very, very difficult Rhode Island economy, and people are struggling in that economy, and the need for food bank assistance is great.
Ray's had them on a few times.
Yeah. Andrew is very. I know him from serving on the Food Stamp Advisory Committee. I have great respect for him and the work that he does. He's a single-minded, dedicated, sophisticated person in my judgment, and I'm very pleased to have his acquaintance. But we've been working on food stamp issues, trying to make people who are eligible for food stamps receive food stamps. You know, I gave you one example that Henry has been fighting for a long time now, and that is people who are arguably eligible for food stamps have to fill out a 28-page application in order to get food stamps. 28 pages.
28 pages. That's
it's
a
astonishing.
dissertation. Yeah.
Yep. And Henry has pushed and pushed and pushed for eliminating the unnecessary parts of that application. And notwithstanding that it's been a very difficult thing to do, we now have a food stamp application that is 8 pages long.
Oh,
not
that's
28.
quite a decrease.
Oh, that's quite a decrease. And most of the credit for the impetus for that, I mean, I credit the people at the Department of Human Services for getting the job done.
Yeah.
They needed to get a lot of assistance from the federal authorities to eliminate some parts of the application. But it is unmistakably Henry's singular drive to make it easier for people who have lots of challenges in their lives not to be standing around filling out 28-page applications. And then the last thing, you may know we're really working hard to get legislation passed in Rhode Island that will make utilities affordable to low-income people. And I was talking with someone several days ago, and he was commenting about how in his church there's a commitment to helping people in the community.
But does National Grid have, for low-income people who are eligible, have a decrease?
Yes, they have
gas, electric.
Yep, they have lower rates for people who qualify. But I can tell you, and here's the statistic that underscores the point that I'm going to make. Those lower rates are like, they're sort of like giving a person who hasn't had water in 3 days a thimbleful.
A thimbleful.
It just isn't enough.
It's not enough.
And the evidence of that is that there are 35,000 Rhode Island households that have had their gas or electricity terminated for some period of time this year. 35,000 households. And if you say, well, let's say that there's 3 people in each household, that's 100,000 people. That's 10% of the Rhode Island population that is affected. Now, some people think, well, those people who ought to pay the bills, and they can pay the bills, but in fact, they can't. Sometimes the utilities cost will devour, if you will, 30% of a family's budget. For someone like me who's had a good job and has good income, my utilities, as high as they are, maybe represent 3–4% of my family budget. But if you're poor, it could be as much as 30%. And these folks who are struggling are, in the main, working. They're working today. And sometimes they're working long hours. They're undercompensated. And they cannot pay their utility bills. So what we're trying to do, National Grid tries to help out, churches and other religious groups try to help out, Salvation Army tries to help out with
Salvation Army
grants.
is wonderful.
Yep.
I've had them on the program.
Yep, they do yeoman's work. And then there are federal programs, the Low Income Heating Assistance Program, LIHEAP.
Yeah.
LIHEAP provides grants, but it's insufficient. It doesn't even come close to covering the need. So what we need to do is we need legislation passed that will create a program that has been adopted by 13 states in this country, and which used to exist in Rhode Island. It's called PIP, Percentage of Income Payment Plan. And what PIP would do is if you qualify for low-income heating assistance, you would qualify for PIP. And
is it a sliding scale fee type program?
It is. The scale is rather, it doesn't slide a whole heck of a lot. If you're at poverty or just above poverty, you would pay somewhere between 6 and 8% of your family household income for electricity and the same amount for gas. Now what that means is that instead of paying 30%, you might be paying 6%. Yeah. So what happens to National Grid if they don't get all of their money from someone who qualifies? And the answer to that is all the rest of us pitch in. This is smart. It recognizes that there is tremendous need, and it recognizes that all of us have responsibility to make sure our families and communities are healthy. We do this in school. I have no children in the Warwick school system where I live, but a significant amount of my taxes goes to the school. I don't complain about that. In fact, I celebrate the fact that I contribute to schools. Because why? Because the community is a better place. Youngsters do well in their development, in their careers, and that rebounds to all of us. So coming back to the percentage of income payment plan, if someone pays a lesser amount, in order for National Grid to get all the money that's due them, the rest of us would pitch in. We calculate the amount that we would have to pitch in to be about $1.40 a month on the gas side and an equal amount on the electric side. So $1.40 a month, $16.80 a year, less than the price of 2 movie tickets. That's what I tell people.
The movies
Think
are
of it.
so expensive these days.
Yeah, they are, and it makes those
How about the
numbers look
treats?
good.
Isn't it terrible?
Yes, that's right. We don't get treats when we go to the movies because
Too expensive.
It's too expensive. But so if we could get this legislation passed and create PIP like 13 other states have done, we can take that 35,000 shut-off number and we could cut it probably by 75%. And that's just an estimate on my part, but I think that's probably true. So people will have their lights on, people will have heat, they won't be trying to heat their house with their oven open, they won't be running electrical cords from the next door neighbor over to their house, overloading the electric circuits, creating the opportunity for disaster.
Dangerous.
Kids will be healthier. Performance in school is known to be better when people have their utilities on as opposed to losing them. So from every point of view, this is a good thing to do. The other states that have done it are pleased with the outcome. I mentioned that I think I mentioned that we actually had a PIP program in the 1980s in Rhode Island. It was a pilot study. There was a very sophisticated evaluation of the effectiveness of that PIP program, which was underwritten by federal dollars. Those federal dollars are no longer available, so if we're going to have PIP in Rhode Island, it's going to have to be funded by we, the consumers. But that program, that pilot program, was so successful that when it was evaluated by experts from the National Consumer Law Center in Boston, they recommended that it be much more broadly expanded in Rhode Island. It was working. When the federal dollars went away, PIP went away, and we fell into this situation that is greatly exacerbated by the bad economy that
Fell into a pit.
we fell into a pit, and it's a very dark and cold pit because for a lot of people there are no light bulbs and their heaters are not on.
That's right.
And the folks who find themselves at risk of being turned off, or they are turned off, they talk about how badly they're treated when they're dealing with someone on the phone at National Grid, and this is not universally true. There are lots of good people at National Grid. But from a psychologist's point of view, we can understand that when there are big power differentials between people, that there's oftentimes abuse. And that's true whether people are guards in prison and prisoners, big power differentials, there's abuse. When you're dealing with someone at National Grid who can throw the switch and shut your power off, that person's very powerful. You're relatively weaker, considerably weaker. And these power differentials lead to certain kinds of expectations that we have for people. So you don't pay your bill. I'm talking to you on the phone. Why in God's name don't you pay your bill? I have to pay my bill. My family struggles. They have to pay their bill. And there are certain assumptions that are made that these folks are not trying to carry their weight. Most people who are having difficulties with the utilities are paying something. Yeah. They may not be paying everything. They are falling behind. They're getting into trouble with the company. But most people are trying to pay something. And that does not indicate that they are categorically laggards who are trying to ignore the responsibility that they have to pay for the utilities. Yeah. So,
let's say a word to those people who are in our audience now, or people who are in our audience who know other people who are in need. What would you recommend to people who are in need? They need heat, they need food, they need medical assistance. What would you recommend to people in those three instances?
Excellent question. First, they can always call us.
The George Wiley
Center. The George Wiley Center. 728-5555. And there are people who are staffing phones there, and they take calls. We take an intake sheet. we get information about the person's circumstances, and then we try to direct them to a source where they can get help. We are not the people who make the problem go away. We're the organizers that try to, in the case of individuals, direct them in the right direction. In the larger scheme, we're the people who try to get change at the community level, at the state level, by way of policy changes, legislation, and organizing to make things better. So they could give us a call. People should also contact their community action programs, their so-called CAP agencies. ProCap, BivCap, East Bay CAP. These CAP agencies, they're listed in the telephone directory, or you can call 211 and ask for
United Way, is that? 211? Is that United Way?
That's a helpline for individuals who have any kind of problems, and the folks.
But United Way is really helping out too.
Yeah. I mean,
years and years ago, I did volunteer work with them.
All these agencies are helping out, but again, they're bringing to the problem limited resources, and it's insufficient. We have to have systems changes. The best thing we could do is have more equity in compensation for people. You know, not billionaires getting millions of dollars because of their success on Wall Street, and the brokers and the bankers down there getting huge sums of money, while workers are losing money. Americans are more and more productive every year, but they're making less money. If you're in most categories, economic categories, you're actually losing money to inflation and to lost wages. And we seem to want to celebrate that. We want to celebrate that we're getting more out of people and paying them less. Now, not everybody does that, but I know people who they think it's wonderful that people are underpaid. Makes the economy more competitive. And the best thing that could happen is that we have more justice and we don't need as much charity. But coming back to your question, Ray, what can people do? God helps those who help themselves, right? That's what we say. So people have got to help themselves.
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes we get people.
That is true.
Absolutely.
You should help yourself.
Yeah, you got to help yourself.
Not just sit down and get a free ride.
No, yeah, and you have to. People sometimes call us and they'll say, "I need some help."
Yeah.
And we say, "Good, we're happy to help, but here's what you have to do.
Yeah.
You have to help us help you." And that means that when we go to the governor's office and we promote the percentage of income payment plan, you have to come with us. Sometimes people go, click. No,
Yeah, they
not
don't
gonna do
want
that.
to. They don't like
And they're
that.
making a big mistake because they're going to find themselves in this situation time and time again, and they're going to be calling somebody, and we don't have magic.
Right.
So what I would say, what your viewers need to be thinking about is organizing to help get this legislation passed. So then their utility arrearages and their utility bills go down. So what can they do? Well, you can dial 728-5555 and ask for some help. You can also call that number and say, you know what? When you guys go up to the State House and you have a rally and you try to get legislators to pass the PIP bill this year, let me know. I want to come with you. So all of your viewers who are sitting out there and are listening and are saying, okay, so what can I do? The answer is you have to join with us. We're the nucleus, and we need a cadre of like-minded, determined people who will go with us when we have what Henry calls his actions. And you say, well, we're going to have a demonstration at the governor's office to get such and such passed. And Henry would gently correct me. He said, Jack, we have actions. Now, I'm not sure what the importance of the distinction is, but I know now to call them actions. So when we have an action, and we go up to see Speaker Fox on the House side, or we go see President Pivaweed on the Senate side, or we go to see Governor Chafee as we used to go see Governor Kacheri, we need people to go with us. They have to go with us. So it's easy to sit and and say, well, I hope someone will help me, and I'll sit here and wait for justice to be done. But take a note from the Egyptian populace. Any one of them who stood up to Hosni Mubarak would be in a deep, dark prison. It would never see the light of day. But when 250,000 people take to the streets, that's an unstoppable revolution. It may ebb and flow in terms of its success. But ultimately,
supposed to step down tonight, is it?
no, people expected that he might today, but he said that he's not, and so the crisis is actually building. But if one person tries to do something to get their gas turned on or electricity turned on after they've been shut off, and they don't have the money to pay their bills, they can help themselves by becoming part of our organization, or at least participating with us.
The power of numbers?
The power of numbers, when it's in their interest. So we encourage people to call us, not only for help, but also call us and say, when you do something that is going to benefit all of us, I'm going to join with you. So 728-5555.
Yes.
Help out. That's the most important thing that people can do, Ray. They have to advocate for themselves. The wealthy, they have their advocates. They have their lobbyists. They have their tax attorneys. They have they have legislators who are very beholden to them. We need to exert our collective energy in order to get them to pay attention to us and to the members of our organization.
Is that in Providence? 728-5555?
Yeah, that's it's Pawtucket.
Pawtucket.
Pawtucket, yeah. Pawtucket.
The headquarters of the
number.
Wiley Center. Yeah, it's an easy number too.
728-5555.
5555. The office is located at 32 East Avenue in Pawtucket, and then there are regional Wiley affiliates. So we have Wiley affiliates in Woonsocket and in Providence, in South County, in the East Bay, and so on, Newport, and all of these affiliates, they're all members of the Wiley Center. They all try to accomplish the same goals: make sure people have sufficient nutrition, make sure that people are getting their justice when it comes to employment, and if they aren't employed, that they get what they have coming to them in unemployment compensation. And we all contribute to it. It's a safety net. We need it. And then finally, centering around energy, we have to do something to make this unrelenting energy crisis in Rhode Island go away. And the percentage of income payment plan is the answer. We have 5,000 people who've signed a petition to get PIP passed. I mean, 5,000 people. And what we need to do is we need to educate legislators, and we need to address the question that people have about whether or not these folks who aren't paying their utility bills are just avoiding their responsibility or can't do it. The answer is they can't do it.
Well, time is running.
Remember, 211.
Hands again.
And 211, if you're in trouble, in terms of nutrition or heating or medicine. And the George Wiley Center, 728 5555.
Correct.
And God sure does love you. And we do too. We have to wrap it up.
Okay, that's about it.
Bye-bye now.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.